This is a reading from Modern Saints by Anne Ball. 20. Venerable Andrew Beltrami, S.D.B. Andrew Beltrami, born 1870, died 1897 in Italy at the age of 27. Intelligent and physically attractive, Andrew Beltrami had cause for pride and hope for a brilliant career in any one of a number of fields. How did he himself view his pride and his dreams? He considered his dreams vainglorious. And of his pride he wrote, "I see that my chief obstacle to holiness is pride. I will overcome it." Faced with the challenge of worldly versus religious values, Andrew spent months of agonized soul-searching, armed only with an intense spirit of prayer. Eventually, he concluded that his talents and abilities could be best put to God's service in the service of the poor in the newly founded Salesian Society. On a worldly level, membership with this group had little to offer other than extreme poverty and a life as an almost unnoticed elementary or secondary school teacher. But on the religious level, he felt it offered him a chance for sanctity. His stated ambition was to become a saint, and that quickly. Andrew was born in a small town near the beautiful lake of Orta on June 24, 1870. He first attended a regular school in the village and later followed a commercial course at the Conti Institute at Omegna. Although he made excellent grades, commerce had no real attraction for him. As a boy, Andrew was already generous. He was also assertive and strong-willed. With his quick temper, he was easily roused to anger. But under the influence of the Salesian teachers, he exerted great energy to attain complete self-control. Gradually, through his piety and a great love for Our Lady, a deep spirit of obedience and patience took the place of his faults of earlier days. At college, Andrew was first in his class. His natural leadership abilities made him a model and an indisputable authority to the other students. At 16, Andrew decided to become a priest and a Salesian. He wrote, "It is my ambition to concentrate my care and affection on the poorest boys among the poor, on the most uncultured, the most disliked." On November the 4th, 1886, Andrew was one of the 100 novices clothed in what was to be the last such ceremony that the saintly Don Bosco would preside over. The aged priest reminded each novice, as he helped him into the religious habit, "Take off the old man and put on the new." Andrew did not lay down his spiritual struggles at the door of the novitiate. Here, too, he had to continue his battle to clean his heart of worldly desires in order to concentrate solely on God. In his notebook, he wrote his resolutions. "I will never speak of myself. I will refrain from asserting my opinion. I will say nothing when I am humiliated. I will ask my superiors to correct me, even in public, without pity. I will, I will, I will." Andrew's positive attitude became the hallmark of his life. Of his novitiate, his novice master writes, "His humility was manly. He accused himself of his faults with frankness and without self-pity." The Lord has let Andrew go through many severe trials. From then, he has suffered and still suffers a great deal, but with the assistance of divine grace, he has overcome them all and still keeps fighting his battles with unflinching courage. Inspired with an intense thirst for knowledge, Andrew began his secondary studies and theological training. His rich background in the study of the classics made a good basis for his study in philosophy and the humanities. For 2 years, he studied intensely, and he distinguished himself as a brilliant student of belles lettres at the University of Turin. While still in school, he was assigned to coach the slower students in literature and philosophy. Later, he taught philosophy at Val Salice and Latin and Italian at the novitiate at Foglizzo. He loved his work, but he threw himself so completely into it and into his studies that he was forced to take a summer rest at the Salesian school in Lanzo. During this vacation in 1888, Andrew became acquainted with a slightly older Salesian seminarian whose exemplary sanctity greatly influenced him. Andrew and Augustus Czartoryski of the Polish royalty became good friends, with a type of spiritual friendship that transcends ordinary human relationships. Augustus had been diagnosed as having tuberculosis, and it is probable that Andrew contracted the disease through his association with Augustus. In 1891, Andrew suffered from pulmonary hemorrhage, but he completed his theological studies. Although he was well aware of the nature of his illness, he simply refused to lie down to die. preferring to keep active as long as possible. Realizing that the young man did not have much longer to live, the Salesian superiors requested and obtained a special dispensation to allow his early ordination. He was ordained on January 8, 1893, in Turin, in the private chapel where Don Bosco had said his daily mass during his last illness. The joy Father Beltrami experienced on his ordination carried through the last 4 years of his life to such an extent that it was communicated to all those around him. In spite of his gradually deteriorating health, he continued to say his daily mass and to complete all the other daily religious exercises common to his order. In addition, he spent long hours of adoration before the Blessed Sacrament, offering himself as a martyr of suffering for the salvation of the souls of sinners. He tried as far as possible to conceal the fact that his terrible racking coughing spells brought with them a great deal of pain. In addition to his religious work, Father Beltrami continued an apostolate of writing, especially the lives of the saints. Particularly outstanding are his biographies of St. Margaret Mary Alacoque, St. John Baptist de La Salle, and St. Stanislas Kostka. His book entitled Dawning of the Stars was a collection of biographies of the boyhood lives of 33 saintly heroes. His biography of Napoleon, published after his death, became a standard on high school reading lists. At the time of his death, he had begun work on a critique of the complete works of St. Francis de Sales. Several hemorrhages in late December forewarned the young priest that death was near. In his notebook, the following record of one of his last days was found. For 5 hours I have been pleading before the tabernacle for the conversion of sinners and of all pagans. I have been in spirit on blood-stained Golgotha, pleading that out of our Redeemer's wounds 5 rivers of mercy should issue to flood the 5 continents. In the early hours of December 30th, 1897, death from a heart attack came quickly and quietly to Father Andrew Beltrami. The diocesan process was instituted in 1911, and in 1939, the Salesian Society made formal application for the introduction of his cause. Father Andrew Beltrami was declared venerable on December 15th, 1966. Venerable Andrew Beltrami, in his priestly garb, at an early age he wrote, "I see that my chief obstacle to holiness is pride. I will overcome it."